Every time you remember someone you've lost, physics says you're bringing them back. Not metaphorically. Actually. Because in the quantum description of reality, the past isn't a place you left behind. It's a place that's still happening, right now, in superposition with this moment. When you reverse time in the equations, the funeral runs backward and they step out of the ground, laughing. Of course, that's not how your life feels. You feel the weight of irreversible loss. You feel like time is a one-way corridor with all your mistakes locked behind doors you can't reopen. But I'm going to show you why that feeling, that heaviness, is the most important clue we have about what time actually is, and why understanding it might be the only real freedom you'll ever find. You know, here's what nobody tells you, and I mean really tells you in a way that lands. You've been lied to about time. Not by scientists, we're actually pretty honest about how strange this stuff is, but by the part of your brain that insists the past is cemented, finished, done, carved in stone, and the future is this wide-open space of possibility. You carry shame about things you did years ago, as if they're still somehow present, still somehow bleeding into now. You treat choices like they create irreversible damage, like you broke something that can never be put back together. You think time is this thief that steals your chances away, that closes doors behind you, that turns possibility into regret. But here's the thing, and I need you to really hear this. The actual physics, the equations we use to land rovers on Mars, to design the phone in your pocket, to predict how atoms behave, those equations say time runs equally well in both directions. Forward, backward, it's all the same to them. They don't care. There's no little arrow in Newton's laws saying, this way is forward. There's no footnote in Maxwell's equations saying, time only flows toward the future. The math is completely symmetric. So why does your life only go one way? Why can't you unhurt the person you hurt? Why do eggs scramble but never unscramble themselves? Why does the coffee cup fall and shatter but never leap back up and become whole again? This video is going to answer that question. But more than that, and this is what I really care about, it's going to free you from a guilt you've been carrying that was never yours to carry. Because when you understand why time has an arrow, why the universe chose irreversibility, you'll realize it has nothing to do with your choices and everything to do with probability, entropy, and the most staggering coincidence in existence. The fact that the universe started in an incredibly special, low entropy state. You'll leave here understanding that your mistakes aren't stains. They're inevitable. And that the only real freedom isn't control, it's acceptance of the direction the universe is already moving. And that acceptance, that surrender to the arrow, is where peace lives. It's where you stop fighting a battle you were never meant to win. So let me start with a metaphor, because I think better in pictures and maybe you do too. Imagine you're watching a film of a car crash. You're sitting in a theater, or maybe on your couch, and on the screen you see two cars approaching an intersection. They're moving toward each other. The light is red for one of them, but they don't stop. And then, impact. Metal meets metal. Glass shatters into 1,000 pieces. The hoods crumple like paper. The sound is terrible. Everything that was whole becomes broken in an instant. Now imagine I reach over and reverse the projector. The film runs backward, and you watch as the cars unstick from each other. The glass shards fly back through the air and perfectly reassemble into windows. The metal uncrumples, smooths itself out, becomes pristine again. The cars back away from each other completely unharmed, as if nothing ever happened. Here's the question I want you to sit with. Is the reversed film physically possible? Your gut says no. Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. Cars don't uncrash. Glass doesn't unshatter. That's not how the world works. But your gut is wrong. Every single atom in that collision is obeying Newton's laws, and Newton's laws are time-symmetric. If you could reverse every particle's velocity, every atom's momentum, every photon's direction, every quantum state. The crash would literally undo itself. The equation doesn't care which direction you call forward. It's completely symmetric. You could run it backward and the math would work just as well. In fact, let me be even more specific. Take any process in physics, any process at all, and reverse all the velocities, and you get a perfectly valid physical process. If a ball flies through the air and lands on the ground, the reversed version where the ball jumps up from the ground and flies backward through the air is equally valid according to the fundamental laws. If light bounces off a mirror, the reversed version where light converges onto a mirror and bounces backward is equally valid. The equations don't distinguish. But you know in your bones that you will never ever see a car crash undo itself. Not because it's impossible in principle, but because it's improbable. So improbable that you could wait longer than the age of the universe and never see it happen by chance. And this is where we have to talk about entropy, because entropy is everything. Entropy is the key that unlocks why time has a direction at all. There are billions of ways for two cars to be wrecked. The glass can shatter in trillions of different patterns. The metal can crumple in countless configurations. But there's only one way, or let's say a very, very small number of ways, for the cars to be perfectly intact, perfectly whole, perfectly organized. When the crash happens, the universe is exploring the vast space of high probability, high entropy configurations. It's moving from order to disorder, from a special organized state to any one of the countless disorganized states available. When you try to reverse it, you're demanding that the universe find one specific, incredibly unlikely, low probability configuration out of all the possible configurations available. It's not impossible. The laws of physics allow it. But it's so unlikely that it functionally never happens. This is the arrow of time, not a law, a probability. And here's where this gets emotional, where it hits home. You are living in the aftermath of an extraordinary coincidence. The universe started, at the Big Bang, at the very beginning of everything, in a shockingly unlikely state. Low entropy, highly ordered, incredibly special. The Big Bang wasn't just an explosion, it was an absurdly tidy explosion. Everything was compressed, organized, in a very particular configuration that had almost nowhere to go but toward higher entropy. And every single moment since then, for nearly 14 billion years, the universe has been exploring more and more probable configurations. Scrambling, spreading, breaking things that can't unbreak, moving from order to disorder, from low entropy to high entropy, from special to generic. You didn't choose that. You didn't cause it. You're just riding the wave of probability. You're a temporary pattern of low entropy in a universe that's overwhelmingly moving toward high entropy, and everything you experience as the flow of time is really just this statistical tendency toward more probable states. Let me give you another picture, because I think this needs to land in your heart, not just your head. Put an ice cube in a glass of warm water. Just picture it. You drop the ice cube in and what happens? It melts. The coldness spreads throughout the water. The ice loses its structure, becomes liquid, mixes with the warm water. Eventually the whole system reaches equilibrium. One uniform temperature, no more ice, no more separate cold and hot regions. Just lukewarm water. Now run it backward in your mind. The water spontaneously divides into cold and hot regions. The cold region crystallizes into a perfect cube of ice. Energy flows against the temperature gradient, gathering up, concentrating itself. Heat moves from cold to hot instead of hot to cold. Is this illegal? No. Is it forbidden by the laws of physics? No. Thermodynamically unlikely? Yes. Insanely, cosmically, almost impossibly unlikely. You'd have to wait for all the molecules to randomly arrange themselves into exactly that configuration, and the odds of that are so small that you'd be waiting trillions of times longer than the universe has existed. But here's the thing that breaks people's hearts when they first really understand it, and I mean really let it sink in. Your childhood was the ice cube. You started as this organized, structured, low-entropy being. You were loved, held, protected in a small, ordered system. Your family, your home, your routines, they were all structure. They were all order. They were all improbably organized configurations of matter and energy and attention and care. You were the ice cube, whole and intact and frozen in a particular shape. And then life melted you. Not because you did anything wrong, not because you weren't strong enough, not because you failed to hold it together, but because the universe has a direction, and that direction is toward higher entropy, more disorder, more exploration of possibility. The heat of the world, all the chaos, all the pain, all the randomness, it touched you and you began to spread out. You began to lose that tight, organized structure. You became more mixed, more scattered, more chaotic. And every part of you that tries to go back, every part of you that remembers who you used to be and aches for that lost wholeness, that's you trying to be the ice cube again. That's you trying to gather up all the cold, all the structure, and force it back into that original shape. But you can't unmelt. You can't reverse the flow. And every time you try, every time you grasp at the past, at who you used to be, at the person you hurt, at the opportunity you missed, at the version of yourself that was innocent and whole, you're asking the universe to reverse its arrow. You're asking for the water to remember how to be ice. And it won't. It can't. Not because the universe is cruel, not because you don't deserve it, but because entropy is a one-way street paved by probability. The number of ways to be melted is so much larger than the number of ways to be frozen that the universe naturally, inevitably, statistically moves toward melting. And here's the strange comfort in that, the comfort I want you to feel in your chest right now. You were never supposed to stay frozen. The melting wasn't failure. It was physics. It was the only direction available. And the you that exists now, more spread out, more chaotic, more entropic, is exactly as valid as the you that existed then. You're not broken. You're just later in time. You're further along the entropy curve. You're exploring configurations that the earlier you couldn't access. So if time's arrow is just probability, if it's just this statistical tendency toward higher entropy, what does that mean for how you actually live? What does it mean for your regrets, your choices, your sense of being stuck? Let's break it down piece by piece. First, let's talk about time symmetry versus what you actually perceive. The laws of physics at the fundamental level are time reversible. I mentioned Newton's laws and Maxwell's equations, but this goes even deeper. Quantum mechanics, the deepest description of reality we have, is time symmetric. The Schrödinger equation works backward just as well as forward. If you have a wave function evolving in time, you can reverse it, and it's still a valid solution. Even Einstein's general relativity, which describes gravity and the curvature of space-time, is time symmetric. There's nothing in the equations that says forward or backward. You can have a black hole, or you can have the time-reversed version, a white hole that spits things out. And both are valid solutions to the same equations. But your life doesn't feel reversible. You can't unbreak the plate. You can't unsay the harsh words. You can't unlose the person you loved. Time feels like it has this brutal, irreversible quality to it. Why? Because you're not a single particle. You're a collection of something like 10 to the 27th atoms. That's 10 followed by 27 zeros, an almost incomprehensible number of particles, and statistically, overwhelmingly, those particles are going to move toward disorder. You feel the arrow of time because you are the arrow. You're made of entropy. You're a temporary low-entropy structure in a high-entropy universe, and maintaining that structure requires constant energy, constant work, constant resistance against the natural flow toward disorder. Every breath you take, every thought you think, every motion you make is generating entropy somewhere. Your body is a machine that decreases entropy locally. You eat organized food and turn it into organized structures like proteins and cells, but only by increasing entropy somewhere else, by dumping heat into the environment, by exhaling carbon dioxide, by breaking down complex molecules into simpler ones. You are, in a very real sense, an entropy generator. And the reason you experience time as flowing forward is because you're part of this vast cosmic increase in entropy. You can't step outside of it. You can't reverse it. You're embedded in the flow. Now let's reframe something, because I think we've gotten entropy all wrong in the popular understanding. We use entropy like it's a dirty word. High entropy equals disorder, equals chaos, equals bad. Low entropy equals order, equals structure, equals good. We talk about fighting entropy, about maintaining order, about keeping things together. But entropy isn't chaos. Entropy is freedom. Let me explain. Entropy is just the measure of how many ways a system can be arranged. A messy room has high entropy because there are millions of ways to scatter books and clothes and papers around the room. A tidy room has low entropy because everything has a specific place, and there are very few arrangements that count as tidy. But here's the reframe, the shift in perspective I want you to make. High entropy means more possibility. When your life gets messy, when things fall apart, when the structure dissolves, the universe isn't punishing you. It's giving you more configurations to explore, more ways to be, more possible futures, more available states. The version of you that's broken, that's scattered, that's high entropy. That version has access to emotional states, relationships, experiences, and futures that the organized, low-entropy, tightly controlled version could never reach. Entropy is the cost of transformation. It's the price of evolution. It's what you pay to become something you weren't before. Think about it this way. When you were young, your life had a very specific structure. You lived in a particular house, you had particular routines, you knew who you were, or at least you thought you did. That was low entropy. Few configurations, everything in its place. But that structure was also a constraint. It limited what you could become. It limited what you could experience. It kept you frozen in a particular shape. And then life happened. Trauma, maybe, loss, change, chaos, and the structure broke. The ice melted. Your sense of self scattered. And yes, that hurts. Yes, that feels like dissolution. But it also opened up new possibilities. The high entropy you has access to depths of emotion, understanding, and connection that the low entropy you couldn't even imagine. You can't have transformation without entropy. You can't have growth without disorder. You can't become something new while staying perfectly organized in the old configuration. So when you look at your life and see the mess, see the brokenness, see the chaos, try this. Don't see it as failure. See it as exploration. The universe is exploring the space of possible configurations, and you're part of that exploration. You're not broken. You're just exploring a higher entropy region of your possibility space. And here's another piece of this that might comfort you, or might disturb you, or maybe both. The past is still happening, in a sense. In Einstein's relativity, there's no universal now. Time isn't a single moment that sweeps across the universe, making everywhere now simultaneously. Time is relative. It depends on how you're moving, on your reference frame. An event that's in your past might be in someone else's future, depending on their motion through space. This means that the past, your childhood, the person you loved who died, those moments aren't erased. They're not gone in the sense of ceasing to exist. They're just elsewhere in space-time. They're in a different part of the four-dimensional structure of the universe. Your 10th birthday exists just as much as this moment does. It's just in a different location in the time dimension. Every moment you've ever lived is still there, crystallized in the structure of space-time. You can't visit it, you can't go back to it, you can't change it, but it's not destroyed. It's not nothing. It's just no longer accessible from here, from your current position in space-time. This doesn't undo your pain. It doesn't bring anyone back. But it reframes loss. Nothing is destroyed. Nothing truly ends. It's just that the path through space-time only goes in one direction from your perspective, and that direction is toward higher entropy, toward the future. Every person you've lost is still out there in space-time, still laughing, still loving, still alive in the moments they were alive. You can't reach them from here, but they're not gone in the way you think they're gone. They're just in a part of space-time you can't access anymore. The light cone has moved on. And when you remember them, when you close your eyes and see their face, hear their voice, feel their presence, you're not creating something from nothing. You're accessing information that's stored in your brain, information that came from your interactions with them, information that's causally connected to them through the forward flow of time. In a very real sense, they're touching you across time. Their past is reaching into your present through the structure of your neurons, through memory, through love. Now, let's talk about control, because I think this is where the deepest pain lives. You don't control the arrow. You can't steer it. You can't reverse it. You can't make entropy decrease in an isolated system. You can't make time run backward. You can't undo the thing you regret. And I know that's hard to accept. Because we live in a culture that tells us we have control, that we can fix things, that we can go back and make it right, that willpower and determination and effort can overcome anything. But the universe is moving in one direction, and you're part of that movement. You're not separate from it. You're not steering it. You're it. You are the flow. Here's the freedom, though, and this is what I really want you to understand. You don't have to steer the river. You just have to stop fighting the current. Acceptance isn't giving up. Acceptance isn't passivity. Acceptance is alignment with the only direction that's actually available. It's recognizing that the arrow of time isn't something imposed on you by your choices or your failures. It's a fundamental feature of the universe, and you can either flow with it or exhaust yourself trying to swim upstream. Every moment you spend wishing you could go back, wishing you could change what happened, wishing you could undo the damage, that's you fighting the current. That's you trying to decrease the entropy of a closed system. And the universe doesn't offer that. Not because you don't deserve it, but because the math doesn't work that way. But when you stop fighting, when you turn around and face the direction the water is flowing, something shifts. You're not controlling it, but you're also not being battered by it. You're moving with it. And there's a strange peace in that, a strange relief in letting go of the illusion that you could ever have swum upstream. Let me tell you about regret, because I think regret is the emotional signature of trying to violate physics. Every time you replay the fight, the breakup, the choice you wish you hadn't made, what are you doing? You're running the film backward. You're trying to find the timeline where things unbreak. You're searching for the configuration where the words go back into your mouth, where the hurt unravels, where the entropy decreases and everything returns to the organized state it was in before. Your brain is desperately trying to reverse time, trying to find the low entropy configuration, trying to make the ice cube reassemble. And the universe doesn't offer that timeline. Not because you don't deserve it, not because you're being punished, but because probability doesn't work that way. Regret is you trying to violate the second law of thermodynamics with your mind. And entropy always wins. Think about what regret feels like in your body. It's heavy, it's stuck, it's repetitive. You go over the same moment again and again, trying to find the version where you made the other choice. But you can't find it, because it doesn't exist in the forward direction of time. It only exists in the imaginary backward direction, the direction that's mathematically valid, but statistically impossible. And the cruel thing, the thing that really hurts, is that your brain has this capacity to imagine different pasts. You can run counterfactuals. You can simulate what would have happened if you'd done it differently. And that capacity, which probably evolved to help you learn from mistakes, becomes a source of endless torture when you don't understand that those alternative pasts aren't accessible. They're not real possibilities. They're just simulations in your mind. The only real timeline is the one where entropy increased, the one where you said the thing, did the thing, broke the thing. That's the only timeline that exists in the actual forward flow of time. And you can either accept that timeline and work with it, or you can torture yourself trying to access a timeline that only exists in your imagination. Here's what I want you to do. Here's how you actually live with this understanding, how you stop fighting the arrow. For 1 week, at the end of each day, I want you to write down one thing that fell apart and one thing that became possible because of it. Just one of each. The relationship that ended. What space did it create? What did you learn? What became available to you? The job you lost? What did it force you to explore? What doors opened because that door closed? The version of yourself that dissolved? What can you experience now that you couldn't then? Train your brain to see entropy not as loss, but as the opening of new configurations. Because that's what it is, physically. Higher entropy means more microstates available, more ways to arrange things, more possibilities to explore, and yes, some of those possibilities are painful. Some of them involve grief and loneliness and confusion. But they're still possibilities. They're still experiences you couldn't have had if everything had stayed frozen in the low entropy configuration. Here's another practice. Close your eyes. Think of a regret, something you wish you could undo. Really feel it. Feel the weight of it. Feel how much you want to go back. Now imagine the universe reversing. Imagine time running backward. The harsh words fly back into your mouth. The person unhurts. The moment unravels. Everything runs in reverse, like a film going backward. Watch it in your mind. See it undoing itself. And now sit with how impossible that feels. Not because you're bad, not because you don't deserve it, but because the universe doesn't go that way. Because entropy doesn't decrease in isolated systems. Because time's arrow points forward and only forward. Let yourself feel the impossibility of it. Let yourself recognize that you've been trying to do something that the universe fundamentally doesn't allow. And notice what happens when you stop trying. Notice the relief of stopping the fight. Then, after you've felt the impossibility of going backward, imagine yourself stepping forward, into the only direction available. Not fixing the past, not making it unhappen, just moving with the current, just flowing with the arrow. What does that feel like? What opens up when you stop trying to reverse entropy? Here's a mantra I want you to use when you feel broken, when you feel chaotic, when you feel scattered and disordered. I am not broken. I am high entropy. I contain more possibility now than I ever have. Let that be true. Let it land in your body. You are not failing. You are not dissolving into nothing. You are exploring the configurations available to a system that can never go back to how it was. And that's not death. That's evolution. That's transformation. That's what it means to be a living system in a universe with an arrow of time. Every time you feel the pain of chaos, every time you long for the simplicity and order of the past, remember, you were never supposed to stay frozen. The ice was always going to melt, and the water you are now, spread out, mixed, high entropy, can go places the ice never could. Here's one more practice, and this one might be the most important. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen?" or "How do I fix this?" ask, "What is this moment making possible?" Reframe every ending as an opening in space-time. Reframe every loss as an increase in entropy that makes new configurations available. When something falls apart, don't ask how to put it back together. Ask what you can build with the pieces. Ask what becomes possible now that wasn't possible before. Because here's the thing about entropy, about disorder, about chaos. It's creative. It's generative. The universe doesn't move toward maximum entropy because it's trying to destroy everything. It moves toward maximum entropy because that's where the most possibilities live. That's where the most configurations are available. That's where the most exploration can happen. And you are part of that exploration. You're not fighting against entropy. You are entropy. You are the universe exploring what it's like to be human, to experience loss, to transform, to break and scatter, and eventually to dissipate completely back into the cosmic background. And that sounds dark, maybe. It sounds like nihilism, like nothing matters, but I don't think that's right. I think it's the opposite. If you were permanent, if you were unchanging, if you were low entropy forever, you'd be frozen. You'd be dead in a different way. You'd be a crystal, perfect and symmetrical and utterly incapable of doing anything interesting. Entropy is what makes change possible. Entropy is what makes life possible. Entropy is what makes this conversation possible. What makes your thoughts possible. What makes growth and transformation and evolution possible. You are a temporary decrease in entropy, maintained by a constant flow of energy from the sun, embedded in a universe that's overwhelmingly increasing in entropy. And that temporary nature, that impermanence, is what makes you precious. Not in spite of the fact that you'll dissipate, but because of it. The ice cube is beautiful because it will melt. The sandcastle is meaningful because the tide will wash it away. Your life matters because it's temporary, because it's a brief configuration that will never exist again, because you are a unique exploration of possibility space that the universe is trying out for a few short decades before moving on to other configurations. So here's where we are. Here's what I've been trying to tell you this whole time. Time's arrow isn't written into the laws of physics. It's not a fundamental feature of the equations. It's written into probability, into statistics, into the fact that there are more ways to be disordered than ordered, more ways to be broken than whole, more ways to be high entropy than low entropy. The universe started in an incredibly unlikely low entropy state 14 billion years ago. We don't know why. We don't know what came before, if anything came before. We don't know why the Big Bang was so tidy, so organized, so improbably special, but it was. And ever since, the universe has been unwinding, spreading, scattering, exploring the overwhelming space of high entropy configurations. And it will keep doing that until it reaches maximum entropy, until everything is evenly distributed, until there are no more gradients, no more differences, no more flows, until it's all the same temperature, all the same density, all the same everything. Heat death. Entropy death. The end of time's arrow because there's nowhere left to go. But we're not there yet. We're not even close. We're in the early universe, the low entropy universe, the universe where stars are still burning and galaxies are still forming and life is still happening. We're in the interesting part, the part where entropy is increasing but hasn't reached maximum yet, the part where temporary structures like you and me can exist by riding the entropy gradient. And you can't reverse it. You can't undo the break. You can't unscramble the egg. You can't make your life go back to what it was. The past is still there in space-time, crystallized and unchangeable, but it's not accessible from here. You can only move forward, toward higher entropy, toward more disorder, toward the future. But here's the thing, and this is what I really want you to feel. You were never supposed to reverse it. The past isn't a place you failed to preserve. It's a place that's still there, frozen in space-time, but not accessible from your current position. The future isn't a blank slate you control through willpower. It's a probability space you navigate, constrained by the arrow of time, constrained by entropy, constrained by the fact that disorder is vastly more probable than order. And the present? The present is the only moment where entropy is actually happening, where transformation is occurring, where you are alive in the flow, moving with the current, exploring the space of possible configurations available to a human being in this particular corner of space-time. You're not broken because your life doesn't look like it used to. You're not failing because you can't hold it together. You're not weak because you can't reverse the flow. You're later in time. You're further along the entropy curve, and that's exactly where you're supposed to be. That's the only place you could possibly be, given the laws of physics and the direction of time's arrow. There's a kind of relief in that, don't you think? A kind of peace in recognizing that the guilt you've been carrying, the shame about not being able to fix the past, the regret about choices you can't undo, all of that is you trying to violate the second law of thermodynamics. All of that is you trying to swim upstream against the current of probability itself. And you can stop. You can turn around. You can face the direction the water is flowing and let it carry you. That doesn't mean you stop trying. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become passive or nihilistic. It means you stop trying to do the impossible thing, reverse entropy, reverse time, undo what happened, and start doing the possible thing. Moving forward, exploring new configurations, accepting the high entropy state you're in, and asking what becomes possible from here. Because here's what's true. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are entropy in motion, and the universe is moving with you. Every atom in your body is obeying the laws of physics, increasing entropy, flowing forward in time. You can't step outside that flow. You can't resist it. You can only align with it or exhaust yourself fighting it. And when you align with it, when you accept the arrow, when you stop trying to reverse what can't be reversed, something shifts. The heaviness lifts a little. The regret loosens its grip. The past becomes what it actually is, a part of space-time you can't access anymore, instead of what you've been treating it as, a mistake you could somehow fix if only you tried hard enough. You are where you are. You are when you are. And from here, from now, infinite possibilities branch out into the future. Not because you control them, but because the universe is still exploring, still unfolding, still increasing in entropy, and therefore in possibility. The you that exists now, scattered and chaotic and high entropy, is not a worse version of the you that existed then. It's a different configuration, a later configuration, a configuration with access to experiences and insights and depths that the earlier you couldn't reach. You've paid the cost of entropy, disorder, pain, loss, and you've bought access to a larger space of possibility. That's the trade. That's always been the trade. You can't have transformation without entropy. You can't have new configurations without dissolving old ones. You can't become something different while staying the same. And I know it hurts. I know it feels like loss. I know you look back at the person you were, the life you had, the wholeness you felt, and you ache for it. You want to be the ice cube again. You want to be frozen and intact and safe in that tight, organized structure. But you can't. The heat has touched you. The world has melted you, and the only direction is forward into more melting, more spreading, more mixing with everything else, until eventually, you return to the cosmic background, your atoms scattered and mixed with the atoms of stars and planets and other people, indistinguishable from the high entropy soup of the universe at heat death. But not yet. Not now. Right now, you're still a pattern, still a configuration, still a temporary local decrease in entropy maintained by the flow of energy through your body. Still alive, still here, still exploring what it means to be human in a universe with an arrow of time. And that's enough. That's everything, actually. Because this moment, right now, is the only moment where you exist. The past you is frozen in space-time, inaccessible. The future you doesn't exist yet. This you, the one reading these words, feeling these feelings, carrying these thoughts, this is the only you that's actually here. And this you is exactly as valid, exactly as worthy, exactly as real as any you that came before or will come after. You're not broken, you're not damaged, you're not failing. You're in motion, you're in transformation, you're in the flow of entropy, moving from configuration to configuration, exploring the space of what's possible for a human being to experience. So here's my invitation to you. If this has reframed something, if you felt something shift, if you felt even a tiny bit less guilty, or less stuck, or less broken, I want you to do something for me. Leave a comment and tell me one thing you've been trying to reverse that you're ready to let move forward. Just one thing. The relationship you keep trying to fix, the mistake you keep replaying, the person you keep trying to become again. Whatever it is, name it. Say it out loud. Tell me what you're ready to stop trying to undo. Because when you name it, when you acknowledge that you've been fighting entropy, something shifts. You're not giving up. You're not surrendering to chaos. You're aligning with the only direction available. You're turning around and facing downstream. You're letting the current carry you instead of exhausting yourself swimming against it. And maybe we can build a space here where we all stop fighting the current together. Where we acknowledge that we're all high-entropy systems in a high-entropy universe, all scattered and broken and transformed in different ways, all carrying the weight of trying to reverse what can't be reversed. Maybe we can be a community of people who understand that entropy isn't failure, it's evolution. And if you want more of this, more physics that heals, more paradoxes that set you free, more attempts to translate the equations into emotional wisdom, then subscribe. Hit the bell. Come back. Because the universe is strange, and you deserve to understand it. You deserve to see how the laws of physics apply not just to particles and planets, but to your heart, your life, your pain, your transformation. The universe is moving forward. You're moving forward with it. There's no other direction. There never was. And that's okay. That's more than okay. That's everything. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for letting me share this with you. I'll see you in the next one. Keep flowing. Keep exploring. Keep being the high entropy, endlessly possible, infinitely precious configuration of atoms that you are. You're not broken. You're entropy in motion, and the universe is moving with you.